Stage 1. The Nobody. Jeffrey Epstein was not born into wealth, power, or fame. Long before private islands, billionaires, and conspiracy theories, he was just a quiet kid growing up in a small apartment in Brooklyn, New York. He was born in 1953 to a working-class Jewish family living in the Coney Island area. His father worked for the city parks department, and his mother was a school aide. Nothing about his childhood suggested he would one day become one of the most infamous men in America. In fact, if you saw him back then, you probably would not even remember him. He was thin, awkward, and usually stayed out of attention. As a teenager, Epstein was known for being intelligent, especially in math and science. Teachers noticed that he learned quickly and spoke confidently, even when he did not fully know what he was talking about. People around him often believed him simply because of the way he carried himself. It was not about facts, it was about confidence. After high school, he briefly attended college, first at Cooper Union and later at New York University, but he never graduated. Most people would see that as failure, but for Epstein, it barely mattered. In the 1970s, Epstein somehow managed to land a job teaching at the elite Dalton School in Manhattan, despite having no college degree. That alone shocked many people. Dalton was not a normal school. It was a prestigious private school filled with children from wealthy and influential families. Most teachers there had strong academic backgrounds, but Epstein did not. Still, he impressed people with the way he spoke and presented himself. He appeared calm, intelligent, and ambitious. To parents, he looked like a young man with potential. At Dalton, Epstein was suddenly surrounded by the children of New York's elite: millionaires, bankers, businessmen. This was the first time in his life he truly entered the world of wealth and influence, and he became obsessed with it. He wanted power, he wanted status, he wanted to stand in rooms where normal people could never enter. And slowly, he began studying how rich people talked, dressed, socialized, and manipulated others. Then came one of the biggest turning points of his life. A powerful Wall Street executive named Alan Greenberg noticed him and became interested in him. Epstein somehow convinced Greenberg that he was talented enough to work in finance, even though he had almost no qualifications. That moment changed everything. Stage 2. The Opportunity. After entering the world of finance, Jeffrey Epstein experienced something he had never truly had before: access. And in elite circles, access is often more valuable than anything else. Suddenly, the former schoolteacher from Brooklyn was walking through the halls of Wall Street, surrounded by wealthy investors, corporate executives, and people connected to America's upper class. He joined the investment bank Bear Stearns during the late 1970s, a time when Wall Street was becoming more aggressive, more competitive, and obsessed with money. The culture rewarded confidence, risk-taking, and ambition. For someone like Epstein, it was the perfect environment. At Bear Stearns, Epstein worked with wealthy clients and learned how powerful people actually behaved behind closed doors. Publicly, many elite businessmen appeared professional and disciplined. Privately, many were driven by ego, greed, secrets, and status. Epstein noticed this early. He realized that rich and powerful people constantly searched for two things: opportunity and discretion. They wanted someone who could help them make money while also protecting their image. Epstein slowly began building himself into exactly that kind of person. So instead of trying to become the smartest financier in the room, he tried to become the most useful person in the room. He listened carefully. He adapted his personality depending on who he was talking to. Around intellectual people, he sounded intellectual. Around businessmen, he sounded strategic. Around wealthy elites, he acted like he already belonged among them. This ability to shape himself around powerful people became one of the biggest reasons he kept moving upward. But then, problems started appearing. Despite his rapid rise, rumors about Epstein's behavior and professionalism quietly spread within the company. Details remain unclear even today, but by the early 1980s, he left Bear Stearns under suspicious circumstances. Some reports claimed he violated company policies. For most people, losing a powerful Wall Street job would have ended everything. But for Epstein, it became another opportunity. He no longer needed a company name to survive. He needed rich people to trust him, and somehow, many of them still did. After leaving Bear Stearns, Epstein began presenting himself as a mysterious financial consultant who worked exclusively with billionaires and powerful individuals. Around this time, Epstein started moving deeper into high society. Luxury apartments, exclusive parties, private meetings with wealthy businessmen and influential figures. The nobody from Brooklyn was disappearing. In his place was a man who looked calm, intelligent, connected, and extremely ambitious. And while most people still barely knew his name, Jeffrey Epstein was quietly positioning himself near some of the most powerful people in America. Stage 3. The elite world. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Jeffrey Epstein was no longer just a mysterious man from Wall Street. He had successfully crossed into something much bigger, the world of the elite. This was a completely different universe from the Brooklyn neighborhood where he grew up. One of the biggest turning points came when Epstein became closely connected to Leslie Wexner, the billionaire founder of Victoria's Secret. Wexner was one of the most powerful businessmen in America at the time, and his trust in Epstein shocked many people around him. Epstein quickly became more than just an advisor. He gained extraordinary influence over Wexner's finances, properties, and personal affairs. At one point, Epstein was even given control over massive amounts of wealth and access to luxury homes that most people could only dream of entering. But this relationship gave Epstein something even more important than money: credibility. Once people saw him standing next to billionaires, they stopped questioning how he got there. Soon, Epstein's social circle exploded. He was seen with celebrities, politicians, scientists, royalty, and some of the richest individuals in the world. His homes became gathering places for influential people. His Manhattan mansion looked less like a normal house and more like the headquarters of someone operating inside a hidden world. Visitors described strange decorations, unusual conversations, and an atmosphere that felt both luxurious and unsettling at the same time. But despite how strange things sometimes seemed, people kept showing up. Part of Epstein's power came from his ability to make people feel important. He listened carefully. He remembered details. He acted as if he had access to opportunities, secrets, and connections that normal people could never reach. Around intellectuals, he discussed science and philosophy. Around businessmen, he discussed money and influence. Around politicians, he discussed power. He became a social chameleon, changing depending on who stood in front of him. Many people later admitted that even though something about him felt off, they were still drawn toward him. As his network expanded, Epstein also became obsessed with status symbols: private jets, massive properties, luxury islands, security teams, famous friends. Everything around him seemed designed to send one message: Jeffrey Epstein was untouchable. But beneath the glamorous image, darker rumors slowly began following him. Stories about inappropriate behavior with young girls quietly circulated in certain circles. Some staff members, associates, and visitors reportedly noticed strange situations around Epstein's homes. Yet almost nobody publicly challenged him, partly because they feared his connections. Stage 4. The Empire. By the early 2000s, Jeffrey Epstein had reached the peak of his power. This was no longer just a wealthy man with famous friends. Epstein had created an entire world around himself, a private empire where the normal rules of society seemed to disappear. His lifestyle looked almost unreal. He owned one of the largest private homes in Manhattan, a luxury ranch in New Mexico, a mansion in Palm Beach, an apartment in Paris, and perhaps most famously, a private island in the Caribbean that later became one of the most controversial locations connected to his name. But the real power of Epstein's empire was not the buildings or the money. It was the network. Over the years, Epstein had carefully surrounded himself with influential individuals from nearly every powerful industry imaginable. Some traveled on his private planes. Some attended private dinners and meetings with him. And that image of being untouchable slowly became part of his identity. Epstein behaved less like a normal businessman and more like someone who believed the system no longer applied to him. Employees and associates later described an atmosphere of secrecy around him. Certain rooms inside his homes were restricted. Security cameras reportedly existed throughout parts of his properties. Young girls were frequently seen entering and leaving his residences. Rumors continued spreading quietly, but almost nobody openly confronted him. Many people either ignored the warning signs or convinced themselves not to ask questions. Part of what made Epstein so dangerous was his understanding of human weakness. He knew powerful people feared scandals. He knew ambitious people wanted access to elite circles. He knew many individuals would stay silent if speaking up risked destroying their careers or reputations. Epstein built an environment where silence became easier than confrontation. And as years passed, that silence allowed his empire to keep growing. At the center of everything was control. Epstein controlled access to wealth, connections, luxury, and opportunities. Many people around him became dependent on him in different ways. Some wanted financial opportunities, others wanted social status, others simply wanted to remain connected to powerful networks. But while his public image remained strong, cracks were slowly beginning to appear beneath the surface. In Palm Beach, local police started hearing disturbing allegations involving underage girls. What initially sounded like isolated accusations slowly began forming a much darker pattern. Investigators discovered stories that were shockingly similar. Young girls being recruited, manipulated, paid, and brought into Epstein's world. Suddenly, the rumors surrounding him no longer looked like gossip, they looked like evidence. Even then, Epstein's influence seemed almost unbelievable. His legal team was powerful, his connections were enormous, and when the case eventually moved into the justice system, many critics later argued that Epstein received extraordinary protection compared to what ordinary people would face. To the public, it appeared as though wealth and influence were shielding him from consequences yet again. But something had changed. For the first time in years, Jeffrey Epstein's empire no longer looked invincible. The same world that once protected him was beginning to attract attention. Journalists, investigators, victims, and eventually the public itself started pulling back the curtain. Stage 5. The collapse. For years, Jeffrey Epstein appeared untouchable. Despite rumors, accusations, and investigations, he always seemed to escape serious consequences. Many people believed that even if dark secrets surrounded him, nothing would ever truly happen to him. But by the late 2000s, the world around Epstein had started changing. Public trust in powerful elites was collapsing across America. Social media made information spread faster than ever. Journalists were digging deeper into old scandals. Victims who once stayed silent were finally beginning to speak publicly. In 2019, federal authorities arrested Epstein again on sex trafficking charges involving underage girls. This time, the case exploded across global media almost instantly. His name dominated headlines, television programs, online discussions, and social media platforms. But unlike previous years, the public reaction felt different. People were no longer just focused on Epstein himself. They wanted to know who surrounded him, who protected him, and how someone like him managed to operate for decades inside elite society. Suddenly, Epstein's empire began falling apart at incredible speed. His private jet logs, famous connections, luxury properties, and social circles became objects of public obsession. Every photograph with celebrities or politicians was analyzed online. Every old interview was re-examined. And then came the moment that transformed the case from a massive scandal into a global obsession. On August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead inside his jail cell in New York while awaiting trial. Authorities officially ruled his death a suicide. But almost immediately, millions of people around the world questioned the circumstances surrounding it. Cameras reportedly malfunctioned, guards failed to properly monitor him. Procedures that should have protected high-profile prisoners allegedly broke down. For many people, the situation felt almost impossible to believe. The internet exploded with conspiracy theories. Some believed Epstein killed himself. Others believed powerful individuals wanted him silenced before he could reveal damaging information. Memes, documentaries, podcasts, investigations, and online discussions flooded social media for years afterward. Even people who knew little about the original crimes became fascinated by the mystery surrounding his death. The phrase, "Epstein didn't kill himself," spread across the internet and became one of the most viral conspiracy discussions of the modern era. Many of the powerful people once associated with Epstein quickly tried distancing themselves from him. Some denied close relationships. Others faced public scrutiny for years afterward. The same elite world that once opened its doors to Epstein now treated him like poison. His empire, built over decades through secrecy and influence, had finally turned into ashes almost overnight.